Hi children. This week we're going to focus on Europe, and Europe is a continent, and that is a continent is a big area across the world that has lots of different countries in it. So Europe is the continent that we're in, our country, and one of the places in our country is London. So we're going to read this story today, which is called Katie in London. Here we go. London seemed very big to Katie. Big trains, big buildings and big crowds. She held on to Grandma with one hand and her little brother Jack with the other. They all got onto a big red bus and set off to see the sights. But when they got off at Trafalgar Square, Grandma was tired. "I'll just have a little rest," she yawned. "You two stay by that lion, then I'll know where you are." Katie climbed on the big bronze lion and pulled Jack up after her. As the sun came out, the lion seemed to turn from grey to gold. "Do you mind?" said a very deep voice. It was the lion. "Who said you could clamber all over me?" he asked. "We're very sorry," said Katie. "Grandma said to stay with you." "Then I suppose you must," sighed the lion. "Now, what shall we do?" "We wanted to see the sights, but Grandma fell asleep," said Katie. "Can you take us?" "Oh, yes, please do," said Jack. The lion shook his mane. "Hold on tight," he roared, bounding out of Trafalgar Square. My goodness, how people stared, but the lion didn't mind. "This is much better than lying on that stone all day," he said. "You have no idea how cold my tummy gets. Now, where shall we go? You choose," yelled the lion. The lion took them to St. Paul's Cathedral first. They gazed up at the enormous dome. "It makes me feel very small," said Jack. "It makes me feel very dizzy," laughed the lion. "But off we must go, as there's still so much to see." Next, the lion took Katie and Jack to an old castle. "The Tower of London," said the lion. "Ghosts of kings and queens haunt the towers." Katie shivered and held Jack's hand. "Don't worry, they only come out after midnight," said the lion. "But you can see their jewels and crowns." The crown jewels were in a small special room. It was quite a tight squeeze for the lion. The jewels sparkled like stars in a night sky, but in all sorts of colours: green emeralds, red rubies and blue sapphires. Afterwards, the lion pretended he was a ghost and chased Katie and Jack. "Excuse me," called a man in an old-fashioned costume, "but you're scaring my ravens." "Who's he?" whispered Katie. "He's a yeoman warder," said the lion. "He thinks that the towers will fall down if the ravens leave. I think it's time to go." The lion decided to carry them across the River Thames. They trotted on to Tower Bridge. Suddenly an alarm sounded and lights flashed. A boat was coming and the bridge was opening to let it through. "Stop!" yelled Katie, but the lion didn't stop. He jumped. But instead of landing on the other side, they landed on the boat. They chugged along the river, passing great ships and going under dark bridges. "Look, that's the Globe Theatre," said the lion. "Shakespeare wrote some fine plays that are performed there, although very few of them have lions in them." "What's that big wheel over there?" asked Jack. "It must be the London Eye," said Katie. "Why don't we go on it?" "You don't expect me to go on that thing, do you?" said the lion, as they all jumped off the boat. Before the lion could say another word, Katie bustled him on board the London Eye. Slowly the wheel turned and they rose high above London. The poor lion turned rather pale and began to shake, but soon even he couldn't help enjoying the view. He pointed to Big Ben. "Goodness, it's nearly 11 o'clock. We must hurry." As they came down, Big Ben chimed 11 times. Katie and Jack jumped onto the line and they raced across the bridge, past a huge clock and the Houses of Parliament. They hopped in and out of queues of traffic, past taxis and red double-decker buses, past parks and grand buildings. They could hear music and drums. "It's the changing of the guard," said the lion. "Follow me, left, right, left, right." The lion marched off behind the guardsmen in time to the music. Katy and Jack followed all the way to the gates of Buckingham Palace. "Sorry," said a policeman. "Only royal guards are allowed through here." So Katy and Jack jumped upon the lion and we walked on past the palace. They hoped to see a real prince or princess. Instead, they noticed a lot of flags and crests with lions on them. The lion smiled. "I'm very well known by the royal family." "Why is that?" asked Katy. "Because the lion is called the King of Beasts," said the lion proudly. And as they galloped away, perhaps they did catch a glimpse of someone waving from a palace window. Oh, can you see that? Who do you think that is? By now, the lion's paws were beginning to ache, so they went to sit in a leafy park. The lion dangled his paws in a cool lake. Jack bought ice creams with his pocket money. "Delicious," said the lion. "I love Tutti Frutti." "How are your paws?" asked Katy. "Rather sore," admitted the lion. "I'm not sure I'm used to all this walking. Perhaps we can catch a bus back to Trafalgar Square." A policeman told them to catch a number 9 bus from Harrods, the big department store. "I wish we didn't have to go back," said the lion sadly. Don't you like Trafalgar Square?" asked Katy. "Of course," said the lion, "but I do get such a very cold tummy lying on the stone all the time." Jack whispered in Katy's ear and they both smiled. They went inside Harrods and came out a few minutes later with a small parcel. Then they jumped on the bus and travelled back to Trafalgar Square. Can you see him in the shop, the lion? "This is for you," said Jack, handing the parcel from Harrods to the lion. "We brought it with the last of our pocket money." The lion unwrapped it and laughed. "It's a woolly blanket." "It's to keep your tummy warm," said Katy. "How kind you are," sighed the lion. "Thanks for showing us London," said Jack. "Next time I'll show you even more," said the lion. Then Katy saw Grandma was waking up. The lion hopped onto his stone and kept very still. And as the sun went in, he turned from gold to grey. "Hello, you two," said Grandma. "Shall we go off to see the sights now?" "Oh," said Katy, "I'm much too tired." "I need a rest," said Jack. And they both flopped down on the bench and fell asleep. And that's the end of the story. That was an exciting story, wasn't it? That great big lion statue turned into a real lion that took them on a journey. So what we're going to do now is we're going to write a sentence or two about some of the things that Katy and her brother Jack saw in London. So remember, we're going to use our finger spaces. We're going to try hard to have use some face 3 sounds as well, and use our full stops as well. So here we go. I'm going to write Katy saw, finger space, big Ben, Katy saw Big Ben, full stop. She, her, on a big red bus with the lion. Katy saw Big Ben. She went on a big red bus with the lion. What else did she see? Katy went to, tricky word, Buckingham Palace. Okay, that's the place in the front. That's where the Queen lived. That's where she saw the Queen waving, Buckingham Palace. Katy saw Big Ben. I think Big Ben should have a capital because it's the name or something. So I'll just change those B to capital. There we go. Katy saw Big Ben. She went on a big red bus with the lion. Katy went to Buckingham Palace. Okay, so can you do that now? Can you write a sentence or two about something that Katie saw in London when she was with the lion and with her brother Jack? Okay, and don't forget to send me them. Don't forget to think about your finger spaces, your phase 3 sounds, your tricky words, full stops at the end of sentences. Okay, and if you struggle with some of the names of things like Buckingham Palace or the Tower of London, then you can get some help from grown-ups with those as well. Okay, bye.